Hi everybody, my name is Matthew Poes of Poes Acoustics, and in this video I'm actually going to do a little intro of me, I guess, because I realized that I've had some big shifts very recently in my life, and I hadn't done any video to explain what I'm doing in the company and everything. So I'm just going to start with that. For those of you who've heard some of the stories I've told before, I originally had studied human development and family studies and had been a researcher for the last decade plus. And I was a researcher evaluator largely based on federal projects, some NIH, some HRSA, some different, everything was related to HHS, Health and Human Services in some way. But I shouldn't say that. Some were for the Department of Education too. And a lot of these were studies that were done, they were published in the form of like a final report that you guys could all look these up, but they weren't published in journals necessarily. So anyone who looks me up isn't going to find that I'm a highly published researcher, in academics. I worked primarily for private companies or in some cases for universities, but doing these government projects. Some were state too, and it's the same thing. A lot of those, they just don't want to fund your time to write a journal article. And a lot of these are major programs that many of you would know well. I've worked on Head Start programs. I worked on education reform programs, things like that, where the goal was just to try to evaluate and assess either what works or how it works or whether it works at all. And that was my main area of study in school. Now, besides having a passion for the topic, I had done a number of graduate level courses, mostly PhD level courses on acoustical physics when I was working on my degree in human studies. And I did that because I needed to take up some extra credits, basically. And the number was actually not insubstantial. I think it was over 20 credit hours, but it wasn't enough to earn a degree, and that wasn't the intent. I was just doing it to learn more. I had worked within the industry in various ways. I had done car audio installation for a little while. I had done some hotel systems, one for a friend of my father's, and then later some others. I had done sound design a little bit, never knew a lot about it and worked under somebody else, had done some studio design work under somebody, and then had done some testing and got really into the testing stuff and had done that for contracts for a little while as well. And then eventually founded Poes Acoustics just as a way of properly handling the contracts that were coming in for the testing. And then I was doing review work as well for Audioholics and others. And about a year ago, the side business of doing home theater design and acoustics, the consulting work, you guys calling me basically and paying for my time to share how best to optimize your systems, began to evolve enough. So I do want to be clear, because sometimes this gets misconstrued. Review work makes like no money. It makes very little money, and I do that more for the exposure and the ability to have my hands on lots of different products. But the consulting work, the testing work, and the design work had gotten big enough that I felt like there might be a way to jump into that full time, which I hadn't been doing full time. And I had gotten a couple of really large projects, and I was doing them part-time, which was hard because even though they weren't full-time work, they demanded some full-time effort. And so I have to put my salaried position with my insurance for the family and our main income first, which meant those projects were not necessarily getting the attention they always deserved, but I was doing my best and the projects were moving along well. Well, I ultimately decided that maybe it's time to make a jump. And so I've made that jump into Poes Acoustics as a full-time business. Now, I want to explain a little bit about what the business is, because it isn't any one thing. And part of that is because I think the best way for me right now to move forward is going to be to have multiple streams of income. So the one that many of you know about is the review work that I do for Audioholics, and who knows, I may write for other magazines in time too from time to time. So that doesn't pay a lot of money, but it's something and it helps. And like I said, it's good for getting my hands on different products. So that's one thing that I do. There's the consulting work. It also doesn't make enough money for me to make a living on, but it's extra and it helps, and it all kind of adds into that pot. And that's where you guys call me up and you say, hey, so for those of you who don't know, my minimum engagement typically is $500. There are some exceptions, but that's the typical minimum. And I give you about 3 hours of work for that. So you call me up and you say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what my room looks like. And I don't really know what to do. Should I put these speakers here or these speakers here? Should I get this subwoofer or that subwoofer? Do I want to put them in the front of the room, the back of the room, or both? Do I want to use this acoustic treatment or that acoustic treatment? Answering those kinds of questions, which I can't do for free because it just takes up way too much time. That's the basic consulting work. Then we get into design work, and that's done in two different ways. So one is design work I do on my own. It's a little bit more basic because I don't have a lot of infrastructure behind me. I don't have CAD designers or Revit designers. I don't have all of the different pay software. So there's some basic design stuff, like you guys could get a home theater design that gives you like a little PDF printout that has the dimensions, speaker locations, depending on your number of rows and screen size and everything, it gives you your viewing angles, and I optimize all that for you in the drawings. So you get all that kind of stuff out of it. But it's basic in the sense that I'm not giving you detailed Revit drawings of your room that are 3D modeled that include all the different pieces and where everything goes exactly. It's just more speakers go at this location relative to the main listening position on the walls. Screen should be this size, riser needs to be this height, and here's how all that works out. That has a different fee. You can get that on my website. Or you might say to me things like, I want an acoustic design. So I want to know what acoustic treatments I need and where do they need to go in order to achieve a certain target RT60 and get a certain kind of sound quality out of the room. So that's a different thing that I can give you. That's a design approach based on your room. And of course, I sell acoustic treatments from a variety of brands, like Artnovion being one of the big ones that I focus on. And so, yeah, of course, if I'm giving you the design, I might say, and this design can be achieved using this brand, and here's the cost of that. You could also do it other ways. You could DIY it. There's lots of ways to make that happen. So there's that. There's sales. So I just got into sales a little bit with this. So outside of the design work is sales, but it's kind of tied to the design work, and that, yeah, if you want to buy something from me, I'm happy to sell you whatever you want. But really it's more if I design something for you and then you say, look, I don't have a local dealer for these products. I don't really have a way to get them. Or some people have very graciously, and I just want to say thank you for those of you who treat it this way, have said, I just want to support you. I think you're doing great work and I want to make sure that you can keep doing this. So I need this. Can you get it for me? So that's a sales area. And I have hundreds of brands at this point that I carry because I work with various distributors who handle those brands. And so that gives me access to all of them. Denon, Marantz, trying to think, well, Perlisten, which I've mentioned quite a bit, CAF, Artnovion, JVC, Sony, Samsung. I mean, the huge list. I know that wasn't a huge list, but I can't go through all of them off the top of my head. So then the other design work I do, which is higher end design work, is with PMI, and that's Anthony Gramani. So I met Anthony through Gene. Anthony had done some design work for Gene's room. Anthony had come on the show a bunch of times. He and I had done a couple of presentations together, and I think we really hit it off. And so I've come on and I now work, I'm still Poes Acoustics, and I am a sub to Anthony, but I do a lot of the sound engineering, design engineering, I should say, for PMI with Anthony on those projects. And so we have a bunch that we're doing together right now. And what I say to people is if you have a project of that scale where PMI is what you need, what you're going to get ultimately is PMI plus me anyway, because I'm working on all these new projects with him. And it's a really good way for both of us to work together, which we had wanted to do for a while, get to know each other better, but also I think combine forces in putting together, the best possible designs. I have a lot of technical knowledge, as does Anthony, of course, but I have a lot of technical knowledge that I can bring to the table. I have certainly some experience that's different from his that I can bring to the table, but at the end of the day, there's no denying that Anthony has built, as he likes to point out, well over 1,000 rooms at this point. He has won, it's got to be a dozen plus awards, if not more. And he's just got a lot of rich experience. And so for me, it's a good opportunity to learn more yet. So, it's great to have all that technical knowledge, to have experience using it. It can't possibly match what happens when you've done that 1,000 times. It's just that much more learning on each job. So I'm learning from Anthony a lot about how this business works, but then of course helping him to get these theaters designed to be as good as possible. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I am still transitioning out of my old job and working part-time there. But I am now also part-time on this other work, and I would say probably in total more than a full-time job. Eventually I'll be completely out of that other job and just doing this work. And if I could do anything, probably I would love to do that design work full-time and have that be all of what I do. It just doesn't make enough money to fully support myself and my family. And the sales side of things is I honestly don't do that for the money. It's nice. It does produce some extra income, which is really valuable for us. But it started out originally as a way to help clients out who were having trouble sourcing products that were what they most needed or wanted for their systems. And that continues to be the primary reason I do it. It's really about making sure that when you call me up and you want something and I say, look, there's a variety of ways to get from A to B. The best option, in my opinion, is this. And you say, I don't have a way to get this. I can help you out with that. And so, that's where the sales kind of came in. And as I said, the reviews are fun. I like doing them. It doesn't pay very much, but it's a good way to get some experience. I get to know people in the industry really well, like way better than I do in the design world or sales world. So I've met some really cool people that way. I get to do, I think when doing the design work and the sales work, knowing a lot about the science behind the product and the engineering behind the product is really helpful. I had somebody tell me one time, it's easy to sell something that you're really passionate about. For me, my passion comes from understanding how it works and thinking it was done well. So when I know the engineering behind something and I think it was really well engineered, it's easy for me to get really excited about it and to really want to sell it. So I think that the review work has helped me to do that in better ways. I mean, I just did this, we'll actually have some interviews that we're going to post for you all and some live streams. But earlier I had an interview with the direct team about their new active room correction system. And it was the active room treatment system they developed was really effective. And the data that I saw, I hadn't tried it yet at the time that I did the interview, but I was able to ask them a lot of technical questions. And as they worked through how it works and what they're doing in their vision, I was really impressed. Like, it just was really a cool approach. It's not perfect and they haven't figured everything out yet, but what they're trying to do conceptually and the engineering that went into it was impressive. And I had enough of an understanding of what this had been like in terms of like the theory work that went into it early on and stuff that was happening in laboratories. A lot of this work had been done before and sitting in laboratories for decades. And so there's people like me who would read these papers and talk to the researchers and just think, this is so cool. When is it going to make it to the market? And it never did. And then they came out with it. Well, then Trinnov followed suit, right after. And I ended up getting the opportunity to do what was actually a great honor for me, an interview with Arnaud on what he and his team had put together with their new room correction system for bass control. And it's equally impressive and it's equally over the top, if not more so. And so I just walked away from that totally sold on the idea. I mean, I think it's really cool. And I think now because of that if you as a client come to me, whether it's for design or for sales, and you say, this is what I'm trying to achieve, I'm now in a much better position than I would have been to know if that's the right solution for you. Because it's definitely not the right solution for everybody, but it's a really good problem solver for something that we, in the design side of things, deal with a lot. I don't have the placement to put subwoofers where I want them, or I don't have the placement for a more common one, for the bass control room treatments, the bass traps and things like that I need to achieve what I'm trying to achieve with everything else that's going to happen in this room. What do I do? Well, this active approach allows me to take some liberties with the acoustic treatments and still maintain really good results. In fact, I know this has been controversial. I know Ethan's going to hop on this channel now and tease me for this probably. But I actually think that when executed correctly, it really achieves results not possible with typical passive treatments in a reasonable way. I understand you could fill a room with a very large number of deep bass traps and achieve probably pretty similar results. I do not think you could achieve the same results. And I definitely don't think the average person could achieve the same results, even with a large number of bass traps. Whether subjectively that's important and whether you could still achieve subjectively the same perceivable bass gains with a lot of acoustic treatments, I can't say. I haven't really been able to do an A/B comparison. I suspect in reality we'll be doing hybrids with these. Anyway, I've digressed beyond anything reasonable as I normally do. But point being, changing careers. I've gone from kind of being one foot in each world for quite a while to really putting both feet purely into this audio world. People who know me well have joked for a long time that they don't understand how I have time for everything. I mean, I have 2 young kids. I'm a very devoted husband and dad. I actually am the one who primarily cares for them in the evenings because my wife works in the evenings. And then very late at night, you see me do live streams with Jean. Not as many lately as I've been trying to deal with all these responsibilities. But, you know, I've basically been working 2 full-time jobs at the same time, and it's been tough. And so now I'm going to go 100% into the AV world and do more of that. And I'm really hoping that I can have some sort of an impact, you know, or matter in some way in that world, because I think that there's a lot of really good people who have done great work. And I think there's also potential to do even more. And I hope to be a part of that even more. So I just want to say I appreciate everybody who's given me all the positive accolades and comments. The people I've met have been wonderful. I love the people who are watching this channel and share how much this is helping them. That's, you know, again, that's why we do this. It's certainly why I do this. And you're going to see me doing more of it. So thank you. I appreciate the support. As I've said in all the other videos recently, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.